maybe you turn on some music, you do a little dance party in the middle of it all. I would be open to that idea. So I've been working on my computer all day. I'm leaning forward with my arms like this. So I'm inclined to start this whole thing out with a bit of a chest opener. Now, I'm going to do that with a pillow. You could easily do that with 2 yoga blocks if you've got that. Put one under your shoulder blades, one under your head, or you could use a rolled up blanket. That works really nicely as well. And then you can decide if you want your feet together with your knees open like little butterfly wings, which will give you a little inner thigh stretch. Or you could have your legs straight, or you can do a release for the hip flexors. I'll show you that in just a second. All right. Trying not to set the house on fire. Get some props around the blankets. I mean, around the candles. So I'm going to also use a blanket tonight at some points. And I have a strap handy in case I feel like using it. If you have something that could act like a yoga strap, like a dog leash or a scarf or a yoga strap properly, you can get one of those too. Just have it off to the side. I don't know what's going to happen yet. Okay. So for me, either the block or a pillow like this that's kind of large, I want to make sure that it's under my upper back so that my shoulder blades rest on top of it pretty close to the edge of it, so that the weight of my upper back is distributed very nicely on the shoulder blades and the bottom edge. Now, pillows are more forgiving, but the bottom edge of blocks can be quite pokey. So if it's too low, it'll feel like it's poking you in your spine. So if it's up high enough that just your shoulder blades rest on it, it's generally quite pleasant. And then you can certainly add a blanket under your head if you want, or something along that line. Now, this position that I've got my legs in right now is called constructive rest. And this is a great place or way to adjust the legs if you've been feeling like your hip flexors need a break for whatever reason. This allows the psoas to disappear into the low back. And if you have a lot of this kind of feeling that your back arches, this can be kind of nice in that way. You could also take the legs out straight, which is what I'm going to do tonight. Or again, you can do a little butterfly shape with your legs. So I'm going to go straight, and I'm going to experiment with how far apart. And then once we're in that position, just let yourself relax and breathe. Now, if my arms are closer in, this gets deeper into my shoulder stabilizers. If my arms are farther out, I feel it more in my chest muscles. So you can have more of that kind of closer to the surface sensation, or let it be more lighter sensation but deeper in the body. Take whatever time you need to adjust your body so it feels appropriate. Or at least interesting. And then spend some time just breathing, letting the day go, like unwinding any agenda items that might be kind of popping up in your brain, like, oh, I meant to do that, oh, I meant to do that. Like, just those we're just going to let go one at a time. usually for me, as I stay a while, I start to, like, my body shifts and changes and things adjust. So we're gonna stay for about another, I don't know, minute and a half or so. But I'm just gonna make a little readjustment because things have adjusted themselves with gravity. I encourage you to make any adjustments you need to as well. Alright, you guys. Pretty close. We got like 2 breaths left here. So before I come off this pillow, I'm going to stretch my arms up over my head and just see if I can kind of drop my triceps into a little bit of a deeper stretch just while I'm there. And then I'll roll over and take that thing out from under me. Now, depending on what I've had under my back, the experience that I have of rolling back down is different. So usually for me, the blocks or the pillow is a little, it feels like my back kind of spreads out. There's lots more room in there. Sometimes with the blanket, I can still feel like the blanket is still there. So depending on what you did, you might have a different experience. If you didn't have any of those things and you just laid down on the floor, that's also nice. If I reach my arms up like this, it pulls my shoulder blade a little bit away from the middle of my back and gives me room to sort of massage that area that it was just getting kind of pressured by the bolster. Feels nice. All right, let's do a little twist. So I'm going to include this pillow into my life, and I'm going to throw my legs kind of over the pillow and then wrap the top one around. So you could do this without the pillow. I just find it helpful because then I can pull myself deeper in or a little less as my hips suggest is okay to do. So I'm going to get my upper back and shoulders as even on the floor as possible. And then I'm going to work this left shoulder down a little bit more firmly to deepen the twist. So my shoulder is rotating that direction, left, and my hips are rotating to the right. So I get a nice twist in the spine, and I can play with the movement here and do a little more and then a little less, and sort of experiment with the intensity as I breathe. I'm also just noticing how other muscle places kind of respond to my little experiments. I'm kind of doing this little pulsation where I do one breath, I just kind of relax and let everything get real soft and jiggly. And then the next breath, I do a little bit more intensity in that rotation. And then do a breath just letting it be soft. And then a little more into the rotation. So I'm going to take my top leg back. You could do this whenever you're ready. I'm ready now. And then I'm just going to pause for a moment, do some rather large sort of windshield wipery moves. Wiggle out my left arm a little bit. And then just pause for a second. I love taking a moment in between sides to check in and see, how do I feel? And can I feel a difference in the way my body responds on one side versus the other? I'm ready to do the other side. I like to have a moment where I just notice my body change. So there's a point where I feel everything sort of settle back into place, and that's usually what I take as permission to do the other side. So again, I'm going to throw my legs over the pillow and then wrap the top one around. So I've got a little bit more of sort of a movement pattern. I can work on that hip. Then I'm going to push my elbows into the floor, bring my shoulders as level as I possibly can. I need to pull that left shoulder a little more out. And then letting this right arm kind of explore some length. Again, I'm going to do this little pulsation where one breath is just soft. And then the next breath, I'm rolling my shoulder into the ground a little bit more deeply and my hip away from that point. And then letting it get soft. And then rolling the two away from each other. So just playing with that little pulsation here. And maybe I do 2 breaths in between, or 2 breaths of this more intense rotation. Just kind of experimenting a little bit with a push and a pull, intensity and release. I'm going to do one more breath here. And then come on back to the middle, and again, you can come back when you're ready. So I'm going to do this little windshield wipery goofing off bit. And then, I'm just going to cap all that off with one more little moment to check in. Let's see, do I want to do strap stretches now? Do I want to save them for later? Do I want to do them at all? At the end. Let's figure it out. Alrighty. So I'm just going to scooch all the way over to one side and roll onto my belly. It's an easy place to get started. Hands under the shoulders. Working out through the legs, lifting into cobra. And again, just start with a little bit of back muscle action. So that the cobra is really initiated with the muscles in the back body, and the front body has to just lengthen to let it happen. And then you can actively start to stretch your collarbones away from each other. And come to a Sphinx pose. I'm going to let my hips get a little bit softer. I'm going to take hold of the strap because I'm going to use it in a minute. And so what I'm trying to do when I get to the Sphinx is I'm trying to soften my hip. So it feels like a back bend, and it is. but I'm using it to try to release my hip flexor. Because for me, that's the tighter place. And you could certainly push up a little higher. I don't need to do that. My low back is as bent as it's going to get. All that does is start to cause trouble. But you can certainly, if you have a different range of motion in your spine, you can certainly do something along that line, or you can even go down lower, so there's a little less back bend. Gonna sort of lightly stay in this Sphinx, but I'm gonna shift that in a second. Rolling over to my right side, I'm gonna bring my left leg up so that it's a half a frog. Then I'm gonna bend this right leg and put the strap around my toes so I can hold on to it over my shoulder. So that's how this is gonna wind up. What I will say to you is that some of you will be able to hold onto your foot without the strap, but I cannot do that. So I'm gonna make this strap. I have a loop in mind. Like if you had a dog leash, that would work really great because they have kind of a small little loop if you don't have a strap. So I'm just gonna put it around my toes. And then it has a really long handle, okay? So then I'm gonna do this little frog. And I'm gonna go slow because my hips are gonna talk stories to me. But I'm going to eventually bring this foot closer and closer and closer. Not yet. Just a little bit closer yet. But as time goes on. So we're going to stay for just a little bit. Maybe like 3 minutes here. Do a little yin before we get going. I never know what Thursday night is going to be like because I don't make it up ahead of time. I just decide what I'm gonna do and I take you along on the journey with me, y'all. This is how I practice yoga. I get on here, usually at my house, like if you're not with me, I just put on music and see where I want to go. Sometimes it turns into a nap. Sometimes it actually does become yoga. I just never know what's gonna happen. But with you guys here, I feel compelled to actually keep it going in the yoga direction. So, thanks for that. I like your assistance. So for me, this is quite spicy on my right thigh, which is the quadricep area. Not as spicy on my left hip, but for you, the left hip might be the spicy hip. This feels almost like I'm not doing anything, but when I let it go, I really notice a difference. So that's one of the things that I think is really interesting about some yoga poses, is they can be really subtle, but really powerful. Stay for 1 more minute on this side. And the longer I'm here, the softer this gets, which is really nice. I like that softness. Hopefully it's not too spicy for you. I hope so. breaths. A big inhale. And then I'm going to really gently let this leg go. Oh, that's going to be the first part of this. See if I can get this strap off my foot. Yep. And then I'm going to roll to my right and let that left leg come out of there. Now my legs are going to essentially do this, where I've got my left leg kind of resting on the floor behind my right leg, but I'm going to add a shoulder opener here. So I'm going to take this right arm, put it out to the right behind me with my palm facing up, and I start with the arm kind of close to parallel to my shoulder, but that will change in a moment. So I'm going to use this pillow for my head. A block works, a rolled up blanket or a throw pillow from your couch. Then I'm going back over here. Now I don't go as far because there's resistance. Some people will go back over the same amount as they had before. So you'll figure it out. So my foot's on the ground to start with, then I pick my shoulder up a little bit and adjust my arm. You can bend at the elbow. You might like your palm down instead of up. And then I'm just going to straighten out this leg, working it in between the plants. I'm bending my right knee so I have a little bit more stability. And then I've got this long stretched out left leg. It sort of feels nice after that half a frog. And I've got this nice shoulder opener, which I love. Some people call this shoulder opener the broken wing. I don't love that name. I was introduced to it as the sleeping Buddha, which is much friendlier sounding. But you guys tell me, either in the comments or later, you can tell me what you think we should call this pose. I'm open to suggestions. We get to make up things on our own, you guys. We can do what we want. Other people do, why not us? Going to pause here for about another minute, and then I'm going to come out. Now you don't have to stay that long if you want to come out a little before then. So I'm feeling that moment where it's like, it's just about done. So I'm just going to take another deep breath. And then with my exhale, I'm going to bring this left leg back around. Now, under normal conditions, what I would do next, because, I don't have to worry about there being a camera when you guys aren't here, but I would just roll onto my left side. But since that will make it harder for you guys to hear me, I'm going to spin around 180 degrees. And lay on my left side so I can keep my voice going towards the camera here. I'm going to use my left arm as a pillow, and then I'm going to take this right leg, grab hold of my big toe, and I'm doing that on purpose because I want to stretch this arm out. Okay? So you don't have to have the leg all the way straight, right? If your hamstrings and glutes complain, keep your knee bent, but kind of push your foot into your hand, almost like you're trying to pull back a bowstring and the bowstring has got a lot of resistance, so that I'm lengthening out through my shoulder. Now sometimes this pose is called Vishnu's couch pose, because there's these great pictures of Vishnu asleep on a couch made out of snakes with lots and lots of heads, like cobra snakes. So I assume the leg is our cobra in this regard. Oh, there's some thunder and lightning. I don't know how long we're going to be together, yogis, but we're going to do the other side of this whole shenanigans in just a second. So we're going to take a nice deep breath. And then we're going to let go. I'm gonna shake out my arm. I'm gonna roll onto my back for a moment and then just relax. Because again, I'm gonna take a moment, hello love girl. I'm gonna take a moment just to check in and see how things went. And my right shoulder feels amazing, which is the arm that I just did that stretch with, the two in relationship to each other. Just notice for you, like if my arm ever feels kind of sore or my elbow hurts, then I know I want to change the pose a little bit when I do it the next time. So if you've got a little soreness, then when you do the pose on the other side, experiment a little bit more with like your arm down, or a bent elbow, or a palm twist in a different direction, and see how things go. But oh, my arm just feels amazing. A little bit loose, and it feels a little bit like it's fine. It's like dropped into my shoulder in a really nice way. Okay, are you guys up for the other side? So we're gonna do the other side. Now, I am going to get my strap. So I'm just gonna stay facing this way, what the heck. And that's gonna go around my left foot. Because that's gonna be my quad stretch leg. Okay. Ooh, and then my right leg is gonna go into this little half a frog. Ooh. Okay, I've gotta go really slow because for some reason this left quad is uber sensitive tonight. Okay. So slow, 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 slow. Gentle. And then I'm just gonna kind of relax and see how things go. I'm encouraging myself to even breathe deeper, like drink in the breath, because I'm getting so much more spicy feedback from the front of my thigh. It's not my knee, it's like right on the top of my thigh. So that just tells me that my hip flexors and my quads have been a little extra tight. Probably from stress, to be honest, because for whatever reason, my whole nervous system was all jacked up for the hurricane / tropical storm. That wasn't that big a deal for us, but for whatever reason, my nervous system thought it was going to be a big deal and had a really hard time with that one. So I had a hard time sleeping, I had all kinds of weird stress about it. But it has led to some sensitivity in the muscles that often tighten up when we're stressed out. Stay for about another minute or so, or at least I think that's about how long I'm going to stay. You're in charge of you. Two more breaths, because I finally have that kind of sense of like, oh, I just, like my nervous system just eased the seat back. So I'm going to take one more big breath with that nice sensation. And then I'm going to gently unwind this whole thing. Okay, so again, I'm going to turn this into my shoulder stretch. So this leg that is my frog leg is going over with me, but first I'm just going to go ahead and adjust my arm. And then I can take my little frog leg and open it around. Give my head some support. I'm going to pick my shoulder up and kind of adjust my arm bone and test out a couple of different possibilities. Okay, that feels good. So when you get it just right, just pause and breathe for a bit. It's not just right yet. Keep working on it. It's worth the time. Stay for around another 45 seconds or so, I think. See. Okay, so let's take a big breath. And then I'm going to come out of this and I'm going to do that 180-degree turn again. So that my voice won't disappear on you. At least I hope that's going to happen. So again, this time on my right side, I'm going to use my right arm for a pillow. I'm going to take my left leg. And what I'm interested in is that it's going to pull on my arm. So again, I could go all the way straight, but I don't really need to. In fact, sometimes it's easier or better for me to keep a little bit of a bend so I can really traction out the shoulder. I like feeling my pec muscle kind of moving in that direction and the muscles that are in my upper back, in that armpit wing area. Okay, we're going to take a big breath, and then I'm just going to let this go. I'm going to kind of unwind this whole thing one more time on my back. And see how things landed. Oh, yeah, that's pretty good. So if you guys weren't here, this would probably turn into a nap. But since you are here, I guess we'll turn it into an all fours position at some point. So we'll do a little bit of brief housekeeping just to get stuff out of my way. And then I'm going to come up to all fours. You can get there when you're ready. Do some cats, some different, pelvic tilts and tucks and spine movements. counterproductive with the cats. Take them in and out to the sides. Just kind of check in some extra areas around the shoulder, side, waist. I'm going to do a little bit of a dolphin. This can be really intense on the hamstrings, so I'll just put that out there. So I put my elbows on the floor so that they're about shoulder distance apart. I just kind of try to eyeball and check and see to make sure. And then I lace my fingers together, but I take these little bottom pinky, I just kind of tuck him in so that my hands, I can kind of press the edges of my hands down a little bit without that one pinky being kind of in a weird spot. Then I'm going to tuck my toes and send my hips up. This might be a little slippery, so I might have to spray my mat down before this actually works. But let's find out. So there's a tendency for the elbows to want to drift, so we're going to hug the upper arms in. And then I'm going to let myself float forward till I feel my shoulder come over my elbow and then pull back. A little bit of core work. You can take your body longer, so you have to stabilize a little bit more through the core. But just be mindful of how your shoulder loves you right now. Okay, so I'm going to draw my knees to the ground when I'm done with this pull back here. And then let myself go into a child's pose and just roll my shoulders one at a time. Downward dog to get myself onto my feet. Take one leg up, do a little bit of a scorpion there. And put that guy down and then do a little bit of a scorpion on the other side. And then just the weight of my legs, take my hands off the floor. My wrist a little love. Whew. Yogis. You guys okay out there? What's up, yogis? Oh, goodness. All right, I need to secure my hair just a bit. I'm gonna tie it up. And then we will take this through some flowy stuff. So this is up to you. Kind of, you can decide what pose to do. I'm gonna start with this mountain pose, and then I'm going to turn it into a balancing pose. Now, the question you have to ask yourself is, what balancing pose do I feel like doing? Do I want to do a little chair balance, or an eagle pose, or a dancer pose, tree pose? I'm kind of feeling a tree, actually. So you decide. Last week I did the bird of paradise with some extra support from a strap, but this week another plant, which sounds nice. Try to open myself so I don't knock my plants around too much. Now, pick your leg up, or let it go, and step it back. All right. So this is going to turn into kind of a humble warrior, a bowing warrior, but I can already tell I need just a little bit of stickiness. So I have to do that real quick. And what you may want to do is just fiddle with your legs. So we're going to the diagonal, okay? So with the warrior one, generally I want my heel turned back a little bit more, toes turned in a little bit more. So I'm aiming more toward the front. But follow your ankle joints decisions about life. Press that foot into the floor. Spread out the toes to the best of your ability. And then allowing myself this kind of movement forward, I'm gonna fold and come back, right? So if it feels really wobbly, you can go a little bigger. So you can take this front leg, just move it over a notch. So you got a wider base of support. So flowing forward and rolling back. Flowing forward, rolling back. I'm gonna do that one more time. I like this feel, trying to get my spine to do things that look snaky or feel snaky. I'm not doing a good a job as I would like. I wish I moved more like a snake, but I am not a snake. Now you could bind your hands behind your back or use a strap to do that. I'm gonna take 2 blocks, and essentially what I'm gonna do, so I've gotta first secure my legs, and I really wanna keep this inner thigh strong. Then I'm gonna take my hands out to the diagonal, almost like a downward dog, and let myself just fall through. So because the weight is in my legs and I'm holding that secure, I can allow for a hyperextension at my shoulder here without causing trouble. This may or may not be true for you, so pay attention and do what's right. And choose an appropriate variation as needed. You can always just put your hands right underneath there and let yourself relax your shoulders or use that for support. Lift this inner thigh if you can to hold that steady. I'm going to take one more breath. Now I'm just going to carry on in this direction and move myself into a wide angle forward bend. So all I'm going to do is spin this right foot around, adjust until my feet are even. Some people need the toes out rather than in all the way. Feel it with your hip joints. And then you can go through the legs or stay with this kind of outward movement. I sometimes like to do straight legs and then bent as a kind of pulsation. It's feeling kind of good. I think I'll do a couple more of those. Really for me, the Thursday night practice is just I'm kind of taking you on my little journey, which is mostly like I don't plan anything. I just see what feels good in the moment. Invite you to play with me. But you can go rogue, man, and do what you want. So I'm going to do 2 more breaths with this shape. We're going to turn this into downward dog. And you can play with the downward dog, walk it out. You can turn this into a vinyasa and do a plank and lower, or you can just stay with the dog. Do your favorite back bend. Maybe 2 of those, because you like them. And then I'm going to take my left leg again, just reach it up, give it a little scorpion action, and then I'm going to bring it to my upper arm as close as I can, and then bring it forward, and then just step up to it with my right foot. Nice big stretch. Oh. Oh. Little dance moves. Okay. After a wardrobe malfunction adjustment and a sip of water, we shall do the other side. Hopefully, you're with me. It's possible you've abandoned ship by now. Okay. So I don't know what pose you did last time. Take a moment and check in, and then transform. So maybe you followed along and did a tree pose as well. Maybe you did some other version of a standing balance pose. Feel all the muscles. There's so much muscle action involved in creating this pose. Let go of or pick up your leg, and then we'll step it back. And again, we're going to kind of work our way into more or less a warrior one shape. A little bit more of a diagonal movement of the torso. But I'm noticing how tight I can turn this foot in before it causes trouble. Right on. Hip, knee, ankle all want to be the same. I'm deciding how wide. Okay, so then I'm going to try to snake my spine up. I like to do this with my eyes closed, which makes it a little wobblier. So I'm going forward with my breastbone and coming backward rounded. At least that's the idea I have. Forward, almost like a cobra. Backward, like a little coiled up boa constrictor. One more time. Cobra forward. Python back. All right, I'm gonna go down and stay that way. Again, creating this little kind of downward dog, upper body option. Okay, so I'm going to turn this into my wide angle forward bend. Maybe you'll actually be able to hear me if my voice is heading in that direction better. I don't know. I'm turning my toes out, and I'm going to do this little half squat kind of shimmy back and forth. So I'll invite you to something similar if that sounds like a plan. Or you can do your own thing. Two more breaths. Now you can step back to down dog. You can do a vinyasa if you want to. I'm going to step up to the front, come up halfway, and then fold, and then come all the way up. Because I want to do one more mountain pose. But you can throw a vinyasa in there on your own, and then join me up here when you're ready. Mountain pose has become, I'm going to turn this way so I can talk to you guys instead of the wall. Mountain pose has become this kind of interesting touchstone pose for me through this whole COVID, right? Because it's a pose that like I can get overly intense about like trying to control it, or I can decide to control what I can, like my core, and let the rest relax. It makes me stand firmly rather than like try to protect myself or have too much to do. It feels like I'm not doing anything. Not internally, but externally maybe. And so it's sort of a metaphor to me. When life is really uncertain and I don't get to make all my plans, can I just be present and just stand there and allow myself to be responsive to the moment? And keep standing and don't hide. Ooh, it's not easy, yogis. Alright, so I'm going to take a nice big breath. Oh, now I'm going to get myself to the ground through a downward dog, a squat, and then sit down. And you could do a full vinyasa if you want to, and then jump through your arms, or get to that down dog and turn it into a child's pose. So your choice. So I'm gonna, too close to the credenza. Stay with the squat as long as you like. Sometimes that one is one that feels really nice to hold a while. I'm actually kind of feeling like I'm going to come into it this way. So I'm just going to rock my sit bones back and put the knees up. And it's almost, there's a little bit of a boat pose action to it, a little bit of a staff pose action to it, and then the legs. So this this pose usually shows up in prenatal yoga, but we can do it in any yoga class. We don't have to just be mommies. It could be anybody. So I'm holding my spine up the same way I would with a boat. I'm pressing my inner arms into my thighs and my thighs into my inner arms. I'm just pausing for a moment, kind of feeling that Dandasana energy, or that Tadasana, that mountain pose kind of intensity as well. And then I'm going to take my legs and drop them out into a wide V. Now I'm going to put a little blanket underneath my knees because I tend to hyperextend. And it's important to protect yourself. If you're hypermobile, which a lot of people who are attracted to yoga are hypermobile. I'm only hypermobile in certain spots, but the hypermobile spots need to be protected. So it's nice if you're not built that way and you're really strong and your joints are all really firm, because they protect themselves in many ways. But people who have a really big range of motion and really loosey-goosey joints, it's a good idea to give yourself a little bit of extra support and protection here and there. Okay, so I'm going to turn towards my left leg, and there's a tendency for me to lift my right sit bone off the ground, so I'm just going to check that tendency and try to keep it steady. You can bend your right knee or your left leg if you want to. I'm going to leave mine straight for now. Sit up a little taller, and then I'm going to take my shoulder blades, bring the right shoulder blade forward and my left shoulder blade back to emphasize this twist in my upper back. I'm going to try to keep my pelvis steady, so that'll do whatever twist the lower back is willing to do. And then just don't be a bully, right? I'm going to try to be cognizant of the point where my hip starts to help. And just try to let myself do just what my spine will allow. If I pull too hard, my hip will try to help me in the twist, which is good, nice of it, because it's trying to protect us, right? If I don't ask it to help me with the twist, I can just let the twist happen with the back, with my spine, and my abs, and the muscles in the upper back rotator cuff, and surrounding areas. I'm going to take one more breath. My upper back loves to twist, so the longer I hold it, the more it's like, let's do a little more twist. Lower back has had enough. It's done. So we're going to come out of there and let the shoulder go. Now, I love twisting and kind of forcing a little bit more. Forcing is the wrong word, but like emphasizing a little bit more of the twist in the upper back, because it releases tension from under my shoulder blades, which I tend to carry all my stress in there. So it makes me feel like my neck is longer. So I don't know how you feel about it, but maybe that's the truth. Now I'm going back over this left leg, so I'm just going to turn back over there and fold forward. If you like, you can fold sideways instead. You can grab hold of your foot if you want to do that. You can leave the foot out of it. I'm taking my inner thigh here and using my adductors to gently rotate my thigh just a little bit so my toes point up. And then my little internal hip rotator is assisting me on that level. And then I feel a little bit more stretch in this outer hip because I'm rotating my thigh in and not giving into it going outwards. So that helps me stretch my outer hip a little bit, which I'm going to do again in the next step. It's feeling kind of great. Now you could turn this into a pigeon, or you can turn this into the square pose, double pigeon, fire log, skomakasana, whichever one of those you like better. So if I were going to do the pigeon, I would bend my left knee, roll onto my belly, straighten my right leg out. Okay? I'm going to do instead this little double pigeon slash fire log slash square pose. So I'm going to bring my leg up on top. So I've got a square. Things are sort of parallel here. And I'm kind of hinging forward into it to see. Now, if your knee complains, you should definitely back off. So I've got this lovely kind of warm spiciness to my outer hip, specifically on my left side, but I feel a little bit on both sides of this pose. With the pigeon, it'll be a little different because the legs are doing very different actions. But whatever you're doing, just notice, breathe, try to relax into it. At least relax everything that's not involved in helping you to hold that pose in a nice way. I've got my abs engaged just a little bit so my spine stays nice and long. I've had humidifiers going in my house all day because I have plants that love humidity. And I recently got a begonia. Begonias really like humidity, so I've had a little extra humidity going. And now it's raining, so whew. Feel like I might be in a little bit of a sauna, yogis. I know what it's like at your house. Hot yoga with Candy. We're going to take 2 more breaths. I'm going to inhale and lean back, and then unwind the leg. Ooh, that feels nice. All right, so just kind of wiggle, unwind. See where that takes us. All right. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but on the other side. So I'm going to take my legs back out. You're not done with your other pose. Don't do this pose yet. Just finish up and then do your other pose. So I'm going to turn towards my right leg and then just adjust my sit bones until it feels like I'm pretty steady and stable. I'm going to use blocks because I have short arms. But again, I'm going to just pause for a second. Just let the twist happen. Like kind of find a way to soften a little bit through my lower body. So I keep the lower body nice and steady and stable. And a little sweet, a little soft. And then as my back starts to kind of, I don't know exactly how to describe it. It just gets a little bit more at ease, right? So I feel less sensation. Then I dial in the shoulder blades, right? So it's not, I'm not quite there, but it's getting close. It's just a moment where everything feels like it gets just a little bit softer. So then when that happens, then I'm going to bring this left shoulder blade forward and my right shoulder blade back to kind of encourage my upper back to twist a little bit more. Now I twist a little easier going to my left than I do to my right, so it's especially interesting to me to play with the shoulder blades on this side because there's a little more resistance, especially I have an old injury that basically ripped my right shoulder blade almost off my back. It didn't come off my back clearly because there's lots of skin and other tissue holding it on, but it pulled it abruptly, let's say, away from my upper back. And so there's scar tissue that lives under my right shoulder blade. Little trigger points get all jacked up in there sometimes around the shoulder blade. So it's just an interesting spot for me to notice and pay attention to. And resistant. You might have things like that in your body too, old injuries or places where there's just a little something that's different than another spot. One arm's a little different than the other, one leg's a little shorter than the other, whatever it might be. Maybe you have scoliosis in your spine and one side feels good to twist and the other side doesn't feel so good. So modify, do something that's right for you. You can twist the same way twice, there's no rules. If your spine is like, you're a jerk for twisting that way, then listen, your spine is in charge. Take one more breath, or maybe two, depending on how it's feeling. I like to try to feel that moment where things get a little bit better, and this shoulder blade feels just a little bit more at ease now. And my neck got a little softer. And so that, again, like I am trying to perceive the cues of when the pose is over, right? Rather than like, most of my experience with yoga was just like, oh, you hold it for 10 breaths, you hold it for 5 breaths. Like somebody had a formula, right? And then I started working with a specific teacher, Eric Schiffman, who does this practice where you just put on music, do what you want, like, and listen internally, like try to feel it. What is your body giving away to you to tell you how to practice? And that is definitely a different way. And this opened up all these little doors to, when is it the right time to stop doing a pose? When does my body give me permission to go forward into the next pose as opposed to stay put, right? And those are things you have, like I didn't feel them at first. So over time I started noticing, oh, there's this sense of ease, or there's a sense of welcoming, or there's a sense of kindness that starts to show up. That's how I'm interpreting it with my brain, right? But my connective tissue is sending these signals to my brain, and I'm getting this message and interpreting it and then acting accordingly. And this is a way that we develop a more intimate relationship with our own physiology, our own body, nervous system. I think it's kind of groovy. I like it. And it's a different way to practice than to have somebody just tell you how long to hold the pose. Which is why I'm inviting you on my journey, but it may not be exactly the same journey here on a Thursday night. But hopefully you're kind of getting some goodness out of it. So again, I've got a little bit more of an elongation to my spine. I've got my thigh rotating to try to kind of hold my, because my leg wants to go just out to the side, but it's fun to me to try to kind of hold it more upright because it activates these muscles on my hip a little bit more. So now I'm going to come up, and this is where you would do your pigeon, or you could follow into this double pigeon / square pose, or go into the cow face, go Makasana, whatever one you want to do, whatever you did last time. Or you could do a radical experiment and do a totally different pose on another side and see what happens. It might be weird. I once did pigeon in a yin class on the same side twice for 6 minutes each. So 12 minutes on one hip and 0 minutes on the other hip. It was an accident, but it was weird. My hips felt weird for several hours after that. I went to sleep, I woke up the next day, it was all back to normal. But it was interesting, right? So probably I wouldn't do that again intentionally, but it was a worthy scientific experiment in the bad yoga science world that I live in. It's bad science because I'm the only person, I'm the only one involved, right? There's no control group. The hypothesis is basically, let's see what happens. But in the spirit of science. In the spirit of collecting data. So just going to take some deep breaths. See where life takes us here, yogis. So I think I'm feeling like I'm just about at that soft spot, so I'm going to do 3 more breaths. when you're ready, you'll come out of your pose. Now the only thing we have left to do together is Shavasana, final relaxation, which you could do as a legs up the wall, legs over the couch, legs up the credenza. I'm gonna do Shavasana. I'm gonna take this blanket and make like a little pillow for my head. I'm gonna turn it so I can use one end of it like an eye pillow, but if you had an eye pillow with you, you could use that instead. So I'm gonna put that on the ground. I'm gonna use my pillow under my legs. Now the Shavasana is the pose that is really for our nervous system. Ugh, it really is. It's like the thing. So we're trying to allow the body to completely let go of all of the tension, pressure, squishing, pushing, pulling, twisting, all that stuff. So the ideal situation is whatever pose you put yourself in, you can allow yourself to relax, right? So everything gets soft, the hips, the legs, shoulders, everything. So you can adjust so that your neck is softly supported. That's one of the reasons I like a little blanket. Plus I have a ridge on the back of my skull. According to a show I saw on PBS, means that I'm partly Neanderthal. I don't know if that's true, but it's exciting to think about. And might explain a little bit about why me and my iPhone have trouble. Okay, so then I'm gonna take this little blanket and I'm just gonna bring it over my eyes. So I've got a little bit of darkness and just the tiniest bit of weight on the eyes. So if you have a little eye pillow that has seeds in it or whatever, that is a really lovely option as well to kind of give you a nice little sense of lightweight. You know, like you can mush the seeds around until they're just enough to feel a little nice weight on your eyes. And I try to leave you alone in Shavasana, so just allow yourself to get quiet, relax, like do all the little fiddles so that your body will let go. And then even if your mind is a little busy during this pose, just make yourself stay there for a little while. It doesn't have to be the whole time. See what happens if you stay for a few minutes. Relax your mouth. Your eyes. Catch your mind thinking about stuff, just come back to your breath. just right away, but do just notice that your body is breathing again. Feel how the breath extends all the way down into the tippy toes. Take a breath so deep you can feel it everywhere. Let it go with a sigh. Sometimes I need 2 or 3 of those. And then wiggle your fingers and toes. I feel the need to do a little extra love, a little extra back massage and hug goodness. Give your favorite yogi a hug. And then when it seems like a good idea, you can bring yourself up to a seated position. Thanks for joining me on a rainy night. Hopefully this was all right. You enjoyed the process of following along with me as I make things up on my mat. Let's take a big breath together. Big inhale. Big deep sigh. Namaste, yogi.